The headlines called it the end of the road. When Justice Omotosho delivered the life imprisonment verdict in November 2025, the immediate reaction was one of finality, no option of fine, a foreclosure on freedom. For the casual observer, the book on Nnamdi Kanu was closed. But in Nigerian politics, the legal verdict is rarely the final chapter. It is often just the prologue to the real negotiation. If you look past the emotion and the noise, you will see that the dynamics have shifted fundamentally. The courtroom door has shut, but a much larger, more complex door has just swung open in the National Assembly. To understand why this verdict might actually accelerate a resolution, we have to analyze the new chessboard. Here is the reality check. For over 4 years, the executive branch utilized a very effective shield, the doctrine of sub judice. As long as the trial was active, the presidency could deflect all diplomatic and political pressure by simply stating, "We cannot interfere. The matter is before the courts." It was a convenient, unassailable position. However, the November verdict destroyed that shield. The judicial process is effectively exhausted. The sub judice excuse is dead. The ball has now migrated from the judiciary to the executive and legislative arms. The question is no longer, what does the law say, but what is politically expedient? And this brings the Senate, and specifically the Senate President, into sharp focus. Let's analyze the position of the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. Akpabio is a sophisticated operator who understands the geopolitical interconnectedness of the South and the Southeast. He knows that instability in the commercial hubs of the Southeast invariably bleeds into the Niger Delta. Political analysts are currently watching to see if Akpabio will leverage this moment. There is a potential Yaradua precedent here. Just as the late President Yaradua used amnesty to stabilize the Niger Delta, Akpabio has the opportunity to facilitate a similar stabilization for the old eastern region. But for Akpabio to move, the calculation must be right. He needs a framework that frames a release not as a capitulation to agitation, but as an act of statecraft. This is where the strategy of Senator Ned Nwoko becomes critical to watch. Senator Nwoko has been arguably the most vocal proponent of a political solution. His proposal links the release of Kanu with the creation of Anioma State. On the surface, these seem like separate issues, but strategically, they are a package deal for regional integration. The Nwoko strategy offers the federal government a dignified exit route. It reframes the conversation from releasing a prisoner to resetting the socio-political structure of the Southeast. It allows the Senate to present a solution that looks like policy, not surrender. But how do they legally bypass a Supreme Court life sentence? This brings us to the constitutional mechanics. This is the constitutional workaround. It is important to understand that the Senate cannot overrule the court. They cannot annul the sentence. However, the 1999 Constitution, under Section 175, grants the President the prerogative of mercy. Crucially, this power is most effective after a conviction has been secured. Before the verdict, a political release is messy. It requires the Attorney General to discontinue charges, nolla prosequi, which can look like weakness, but a pardon is an act of presidential grace. The life sentence, ironically, clears the path for Section 135. The mechanism being discussed in political circles is a resolution of urgent national importance. The scenario is this. The Senate passes a resolution urging President Tinubu to invoke Section 75 to foster national unity. This provides the President with political cover. He isn't acting unilaterally. He is responding to the democratic will of the Legislature. It shifts the burden. If Akpabio and the Senate leadership back such a resolution, it becomes very difficult for the executive to ignore without risking a rift with the legislative arm. Furthermore, we must consider the economic variables, the continuous Monday sit-at-home orders, and general insecurity have devastated the Southeast economy, with ripple effects on the national GDP. The Senate is acutely aware of this. The Hawk faction in the government wants to enforce the sentence to deter future agitators. The Dove faction argues that enforcement only deepens the economic crisis. The Senate president is the man in the middle of these two factions. His actions in the coming months will signal which faction is winning the internal debate in Abuja. So, what are the indicators to watch? First, watch the Southeast caucus. Can they unify? In the past, internal division has weakened their lobbying power. If they can present a united front with allies like Ned Nwoko, their leverage increases significantly. Second, watch the committee assignments. If key motions regarding national stability or prison reforms are fast-tracked, it may be a precursor to a wider amnesty conversation. Diplomacy is replacing litigation. The lawyers have left the building. The lobbyists are now entering. The verdict in November changed everything, but perhaps not in the way the public expects. It removed the legal ambiguity and replaced it with a stark political choice. The mechanisms, Section 175, the Anioma proposition, the Senate resolution are all available. The pieces are on the board. The only missing variable is political will. The situation is fluid. As the Senate resumes plenary, new alliances will form and new obstacles will emerge. We will be tracking the movement of these resolutions and the unspoken negotiations happening within the Senate leadership. To stay informed on the legislative maneuvers that the mainstream media often misses, make sure you are subscribed. This is a game of high-stakes chess, and the next move belongs to the Senate.